Welcome to WPS After Hours podcast, a presentation of the Public Information Office. We take you beyond the headlines to get the story behind the stories on the issues that impact you. In today's episode, we meet Christine Collings, a communications center veteran of over 20 years. We discuss the first responders behind your 911 call, how your calls are triaged, and what the future of 911 looks like. And now, settle in, grab your coffee. Here are your hosts.
Hello to everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again, taking a chance on us here at WPS After Hours. My name's Constable Danny McKinnon. I'm a public information officer with the Winnipeg Police Service. And to my right, my esteemed colleague, Constable Jason Mikulishin, also a PIO. And over here, our wonderful guest, Christine Collings. She is an emergency communications dispatcher from our communications division with the Winnipeg Police Service. Now, we've got a lot of information to dig through. Before that, we'll just do a content warning.
Yeah, we'd like to present some information today in our podcast that may relate to issues of violence or trauma, which could be distressing for some individuals. Be mindful of your well-being and consider whether or not engaging in this content is appropriate for you. Thank you.
Christine, thank you for answering the call, literally and figuratively, as you do every day on your shift. We're so happy that you're joining us with our podcast. We're even happier that you have been a member of the Winnipeg Police Service in the Communications Division for 20 years?
21.
Okay, tell us about your background. Tell us about yourself.
I started 21 years ago. I have worked in basically all capacity in the comm center. I started as a call taker, then became a dispatcher. I've worked in supervisory roles, coaching roles. So yeah, I've kind of done a little bit of everything there.
Wonderful. And does it feel like 21 years, or can you remember your first day? I know as officers, we sometimes say, oh, it just feels like yesterday. Or did time just fly by?
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's been 21 years. It has kind of flown by, but when you work in an environment that is as busy as it is, it's, I guess, not so surprising. It's gone fast.
Yeah, I think we feel the same way.
I think so. Time has flown by, but we're having fun.
We're trying. We're trying. What drew you to communications?
Well, prior to working for WPS, I was a rural part-time EMT. Okay. And so, I had like more of a medical background and, life changes. So I saw the posting for a full-time 911 operator and I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And 21 years later, I'm still here. I've always been drawn to the adrenaline of being able to help people in kind of chaotic emergency circumstances. And that's what I have here. It's kind of, it's an honor to be the first responder. Take a lot of pride in that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think some people refer to call takers and dispatchers, anyone working in that capacity of a comm center, wherever you are in emergency services, but refer to you as that trusted line between the caller and emergency services. So you're definitely problem solving. I truly believe you're the first responder that a caller will encounter. You're that touch point with the police service or the other emergency services that may or may not be required.
First thing that caught my ear when you just described your role and you said adrenaline.
Yeah.
The adrenaline isn't just out in the field.
No.
The adrenaline is pumping pretty strong in the comm center.
Oh, yeah.
And most people, or a lot of people, probably don't realize the stress that you guys are under on a daily basis and such a vital role you play in providing information to officers. But the adrenaline is alive and well, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Well, when you hear people on their worst days, people are sobbing, screaming, yelling for help. It gets your heart going.
Absolutely.
And you want to do your best to help them. So you have to make sure that you're composed and try to gather the information in order to do that, which is not always easy to do. So it's very stressful, very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And to help them, you have to ask them many questions, because although it may be their worst day, you as a dispatcher or a call taker, you're using some criteria to determine, is this considered an emergency call or a non-emergency call? Now, keep in mind, we understand that to the public or for anybody calling emergency services, we know at that very moment, this is your worst day. It feels like an emergency all the time. We understand that. But there has to be some criteria, correct?
Correct, yeah. People call 911, and we do have to ask questions about what happened. The first question you're going to get asked is, where are you calling from? But we do have to determine when things happened and what exactly happened. And if it's a non-emergency call, not a life and death situation, then we would advise them and provide the non-emergency police number. We still reassure them they are going to get help, but we just can't keep a 911 life and death line tied up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And asking the right questions, I guess, is just so important. And as someone in the comm center, reading people, someone that you can't see, so you're not seeing emotion, you're just hearing. So you're, the audio of what's going on in the background. There's so much that you're probably trying to pick up on.
Oh yeah.
And because that information is so vital. If it's a 911 call, getting all of that information and provide it to the officers who are ultimately going to be dispatched. Just walk us through what, how you gather that information and, what sort of format or, just that you would go through.
That's funny that you mentioned the audible part, because sometimes people call and they can't speak, they can't say anything. So we're listening to what's going on in the background. What do we hear? Do we believe they're outside? Are they inside? We're always listening for background noises, even when we're talking to the caller or not. Questions that we do need to ask. First, like I said, we're going to ask the location. Then, what is the emergency? Who does it involve? And then we always ask about weapons when it's relevant, because officer safety is very important, and public safety. We need to know, is this person armed with a knife or a gun or a weapon? Where is he? Did he leave? Which way is he going? What's his description? And understanding that, like you mentioned earlier, depending on the scenario, some people can't give that information or they don't know, but we still need to ask. We need to gather as much information as possible to try to keep everybody safe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stressful.
Very stressful.
How do you manage that stress every day?
I try to leave work at work for myself. I know other people have different ways of coping. I live out of the city, so my drive home is usually where I can decompress, leave things at work. I get home and, depending on the kind of day I had, how many stressful calls I had, spend more time with the kids. If nobody's around, read a book, go for a walk, anything to kind of decompress. So
you have supports outside of
There's
work.
lots of supports.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like our team, it sounds cliche, but we are like a family. We are always looking out for each other. As a call taker, you kind of develop an ear, which helps you to be kind of room aware. So not only are you listening for what your call takers, your other coworkers are dealing with, sometimes you can hear if someone's on a call that's related to yours. You put that together. So that ear is very important. And it is really important when you can hear that the person beside you is on a tough call. You want to make sure that you check in with them. If I'm tied up and I'm not able to, I would send a message to the supervisor, and they would check in with them just to make sure, they might need a walk, they might need to talk about it. If it's really stressful, they would be offered behavioral health or EAP to speak to somebody. So we've got a lot of supports in place, and just amongst each other, because we are a family, we're constantly looking out for each other.
Yeah, it's so important, hey, just to always be aware of how everybody's doing in stressful environments, because it can easily be overlooked or we shrug it off, eh? We just kind of, I'm fine.
Yeah.
We all do that
We do.
in many professions, but certainly from the law enforcement side, we can be known and guilty of brushing it off. But we're getting better, I think so. As an agency.
Yeah, doing the little check-ins, because
absolutely.
As a first responder of any kind, that threshold that you are exposed to every day, seeing, hearing, dealing with the situations of crises and injury, our threshold becomes very high because it's very repetitive. But just still doing the check-ins, really important, no matter if you're working on the civilian side or you're working as a sworn member, so important to do that and remember that. And our behavioral health system that
They're
we have in
awesome.
place is very accessible, and they have a multitude of options for people seeking that. I wanted to ask you, what's it like when people are like angry or frustrated with you on the other line? How do you not take that personally? Or do you sometimes? Or just how do you deal with that and maintain that professional composure?
Yeah, well, I mean, our training, we are taught how to deal with callers that might be a little bit more frustrated, or happens a lot, actually. People get very frustrated by asking questions because they want the police there. And so we try as professionally and kindly as possible to explain, we're not the ones driving. We need this information because we want to help you. And by providing this, the more information you can give, the better we can help you. We just have to be patient and just let them know that we're not the ones driving there, and the more information that they can give, the better. And we understand that it's stressful for them if they're calling and it's not a good day and it's not a good situation. So we're empathetic to their situation. But.
Absolutely. Now, and I guess that's maybe a great point to make. So if someone is calling and they're a little agitated and you're asking a series of questions to just gather information for the officers, what they might not realize is that a car is on their way already, right? 'Cause you've already asked the question, where are you? And you've kind of maybe determined, not in every scenario, because there might be scenarios where you're still kind of gathering some facts, but if there's something that, hey, yes, it's something in progress and you're gathering more information, and potentially is a car being dispatched while you're asking questions?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with our technology and with our computer systems, as a call taker, I can see if a car has been dispatched. And depending on what the situation is, I would keep the caller on the line to get further updates, especially if it's something like a break-in in progress. The caller can see that, somebody is breaking into their neighbors. We would try to keep them on the line, or even their own house. Tell us what you see. What are you hearing? We're on the way, because we want to try to apprehend the suspects.
Up-to-date information is just so important.
We need to keep the officers informed of what's going on.
Absolutely.
Would you please talk about the training process from the moment you're hired to, I'm sure there's some type of field training. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So after they've been hired, they are in a classroom setting. It's a Monday to Friday for 5 weeks. At that point, then they are assigned to a shift, and they have a coach who works directly with them for approximately 3 months, 450 hours. We have a coaching coordinator that kind of oversees all of that with the trainees. They have meetings with the trainees and the coaches and the supervisors just to kind of make sure that everything stays on track, see if the trainee perhaps needs extra supports. Because obviously the goal is we want everybody to be successful.
Right.
And sometimes people, when they go through the coaching training process, they might realize that this maybe is not for them. But they're not just thrown into it. We do have a lot of support, and they're with a coach that can help guide them and show them the ropes.
I think it's really important too that we talk a little bit about someone that might be interested in a career within the communication center, and you've talked a little bit about it already, Christine. The different roles and certainly the process of learning too. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. To my knowledge, the service is hiring on a fairly regular basis, and what kind of people do you think would be perfect for this role, or what would you share with the public about someone who might be considering or really not even aware that this is a possibility of a career for them?
I think anybody that can remain calm and composed under pressure. Somebody that is able to take control of a situation or the call that they're on in order to get the information that they need. Somebody who has the ability to multitask. They've got to be able to type and talk and listen and think ahead. Those are all very, very important qualities.
Yeah, and I mean the training that no one's expected to just show up and do these things. I mean,
Right.
obviously you have already talked about the training that's involved and the pride. I can see the pride that you've shared with us, and I'm sure there's many people out there that would be amazing in this role and maybe don't even realize it. What advice would you give someone who would be considering a career with the Winnipeg Police Service specific to the comm center?
Yeah, for anyone considering this career path, I would say that if you think that you're up for the challenge, then definitely apply. It's true that you will miss out on certain events in life, holidays, weekends, but the days off are great, and grocery shopping during the week is a lot easier than on the weekend.
No kidding. No Costco on Saturday,
Oh,
right?
right.
Yeah, no
Okay.
Costco on, but we have to leave Costco out. But yeah, you're going to talk to people on the worst days of their life, and you're probably going to hear things that are shocking and uncomfortable. But like I mentioned before, it's knowing that you are that lifeline for that person is so rewarding. This career is very, very fulfilling, and knowing that you're helping people on their worst days, if you think that you're up for that challenge, definitely apply.
A sense of pride.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal.
Oh, I love that.
And then all of a sudden 21 years happens.
And then 21 years later, here you are.
And then all of a sudden 21 years you're the expert and just enjoying and still enjoying what you're doing.
Still enjoy what I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like there must be reasons that you're still enjoying this 21 years. That's a sweet spot. Like, tell us some benefits. At least I think it might all be subjective, but
Yeah, like for myself personally, it's like I said, it's not repetitive. You never know what you're going to get in a day. You don't know what kind of calls you're going to get. You don't know how busy it's going to be. So that part is nice. I really enjoy the family aspect of it, the fact that everyone looks out for each other. We do feel supported, and I have a sense of pride knowing that I'm potentially helping somebody on the worst day of their life. It's an important job.
Oh, it's amazing.
But what happens after that? Because the loop is not closed with the comm center. So you've dispatched people to calls. You've done all you can to give the officers the best information, the most up-to-date information to keep them safe and the public safe. But then what happens?
Then we go home.
Then you go home. And you don't know about what, you don't know how the call concludes, right?
Yeah.
So...
And sometimes it can sit with you, and it can, I'll think about it, but it's just, that's our job.
That's part of the job. But I think it's something that we're remiss in talking about or thinking about. Like, you're taking all the information, you're sending out all the resources, you're orchestrating the resources, and police go and do their thing, detectives do their thing, then there's some court and whatnot. Yeah, you just don't have that loop closed sometimes. And I always thought that might be hard to deal with.
Frustrating or hard
frustrating.
or maybe
Or
you move. Part of the job is just, hey, I got to move on. Hey, I mean, there's someone else that needs me. There's another call.
There's always
that's
another
there,
call after.
And
there's always another call, and I'm not going to lie, it's sad. I leave work sad or a little bit like, it's not really frustrated. I just feel bad, and then I'm curious what's happened to them, and you hope that everything has turned out okay for whoever I was speaking to. But it is part of the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about your 21 years, I know as officers we talk about how things once were and the way they are now. Super curious to know from your training days to walking into the comm center, what are some notable differences in 21 years?
So changes over the last 21 years. There have been many, from the amount of staff that we have. Now we've got a lot more staff to keep up with the calls that we are receiving from the public. Our phone systems have changed, our computer systems have changed, radio systems have changed. The health and wellness for our members has changed. We are really supported, so that's a huge benefit.
Yeah,
huge, because the calls have changed. The types of calls have changed.
Right.
It's more violent. out there. And so it's so important to have the people looking out for us. And we definitely have it with our behavioral health team. So some big changes.
Yeah.
I like what you've said about technology, and that leads me into the question about next generation 911, which is something that it's been in the media, it's been touched on. Can you give a very high level of what NG 911 is and what we can perhaps see from it? Like just a snippet.
A snippet, yeah. This is definitely not my forte.
That's okay.
But NG 911 or Next Generation 911 is basically our telephone system being updated. So I know that you've heard about this in the news. People won't notice the difference. They'll still call 911 as usual. But what digital technology will eventually allow is better accuracy for the mobile devices. So right now when you call 911 from a cell phone, we get a location, but it's not very precise. So this will just allow for more precise location if you're calling from a mobile device. Also in the future, there will be the ability to text to 911.
Oh.
There's been discussions about farther in the future about videos being able to be sent to 911. But even after all of that is done, your best way and your quickest response for emergency services will always just be to call.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it may take some subsequent years for that model to be completely ready to go.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The texting, I believe, should be coming in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
The video is probably a lot farther down the future. But these are all, changes that are coming to our 911 system.
I think we'd be missing out if we didn't ask you about some call types on the lighter side. So we certainly know some of the heavier topics and reasons that people call 911. But what about some of the non-conventional or perhaps unusual phone calls? Do you have any to share?
There's lots.
Okay.
Like people will call 911 because their neighbor put snow on their yard, or they want to know when garbage collection day is, or the hydro or plumbing is not working. And then one of the ones I hear often is, I know this isn't an emergency, but I lost my wallet, or something like that. So, again, with those ones, we try to direct them to the appropriate resource. We don't stay on the line with them. We do have a non-emergency line that you will still reach the police and we will still get you some help. But just really before you call 911, think about if your situation is a life and death emergency. Because while you're complaining about snow on the yard or something that is not a life and death situation, it could be taking away from somebody who's truly suffering a life and death emergency.
So the 204-986-6222 is a number people need to consider before calling 911.
Over 600,000 calls combining emerge and non-emergency calls in 2023.
Correct.
Wow, that's a big number.
The magnitude of calls that are coming into that communication center every single day.
It's an incredibly important role you have, and we can't express enough, always the appreciation that, officers from, again, obviously uniform patrol is, your direct contact or point of contact, but, officers throughout the service rely on the communication center for a number of reasons, the work is just so vital, and always you can never acknowledge it enough.
Yeah, we have developed a lot of us a really good relationship, relationship with the officers, because it is important.
You look after them, they better look after you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, from here, I think we'll take a moment to thank our listeners. And thank you for taking time, Christine, out of your very busy schedule, because I know it is busy.
It's busy.
And stay well.
Thank you.
And don't be a stranger. Next time, we'd like to hear more stories. So jot them down to remember them if you can. Our show notes will have a few other interesting links. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to WPS After Hours. Highlights and links referenced in this episode can be found in our show notes. Please subscribe and share.